Hey everybody! One of the things we really love about Carbon LDP is how quick and simple it is to get everything installed and set up and be ready for development. The whole process will take you less than half an hour if you're new to it. This video will be even shorter than that. I made this video as a complement to the Carbon LDP Quick Start Guide, which you can find online at carbonldp.com. There's more information on the website than what I'll be providing here, so be sure to use it as a reference after you've watched this. And the first thing you'll need to do, if you haven't already, is install Docker. The Carbon platform and workbench run in Docker containers. So if you don't have Docker, you need to download and install that first. That process is straightforward. When you run Docker on a Mac, you should find a little Docker icon up in your top menu bar. This shows that Docker is running. Now, to validate that it's installed and running properly, I can open up a terminal and enter a little command, docker run hello-world. If everything's fine, you should see the message, hello from Docker. Great. The next step is to create a few directories and a configuration file that Carbon needs. So I'm going to open up a Finder, and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call that Carbon. I'm going to navigate inside the Carbon folder. I'm going to create a new folder called Data. That's where Carbon will store data. And I'm going to create a new folder called Config. Next, I need to create a configuration file and place it in the config folder. To get the contents of the configuration file, I'm going to navigate over to the Carbon LDP Quick Start Guide on the website, and I'm going to scroll down to the part that says Create the Platform Configuration File. You can find the contents that you need for that file here. So I'm going to copy that to my clipboard, and I'm going to paste them into a text document. I'll go ahead and save that right now as config.properties inside the config directory that we just created. Let's take a quick look at this file. If you're setting up a local development environment, you usually don't need to change much of what we provided here. Now, here's an important part that you need to remember. The top-level administrator credentials are here in this file. You should note those. Don't say I didn't warn you. When Carbon runs for the very first time, it's going to remove those from this file for security purposes. Now, for the authentication realm name, you just need a unique name for your instance. For me, I'm going to say my Carbon local dev. And then for the token key, you can see it says generate a random string and place it here. Well, a random string has already been generated for me by the Carbon website. It's right here under that config.properties information. I'm just going to copy that, and I'll go back to the file and paste it there and save the file again. Okay. Now we're ready to run a platform instance. To do that, we're going to run a command that's going to pull the Docker image for the Carbon platform down to our local machine. So the command for that is on the website. I'm going to copy that here, and I'm going to paste it into a text file. I've already done that. And you can see, though, there's a couple of things that we need to change in this command. This looks like multiple commands, but it's actually one command on multiple lines. What we need to do is tell this command where the directories are that we just created. So I'm going to paste my data directory path here, and I'm also going to paste my config directory path here. Now, it's very important that when you paste over these paths, you stop at the colon. So I'm going to select that and paste my config path. Now I can copy that to my clipboard, and I can open my terminal, and I can run the command. Docker's not going to be able to find the image locally, so it's going to reach out to the Docker registry and pull down everything that it needs. For the purposes of this video, I sped that process up, but it didn't take more than 2 minutes. Now I can enter a Docker command to see that the container has been pulled down and started. The command is docker space ps space dash dash or hyphen hyphen all. If I enter that command, you can see here that I do have a container called Carbon LDP platform. Now, even though the Carbon platform container has been started, the server within it still has to spin up. So while it's doing that, I'm going to go back to the quick start guide and I'm going to copy the URL to the platform. I'm going to open a new tab, paste that in. If we look at this URL, it's localhost 8083 platform API. It's very important that this URL end with a trailing slash. If I hit enter, the server responds with an RDF XML file. This tells us that everything is running properly. Okay, so now we have the Carbon platform, but there's also another container that we want to pull down from the Docker registry. It's the Carbon workbench. The workbench runs an application that provides a graphical user interface to the Carbon platform, or the Carbon LDP backend. So if I go over to the quick start guide again, I can see there's a section called Run the Carbon Workbench. And there's a command here I want to copy to my clipboard. I'm going to go into the terminal, and I'll clear that for us. Paste the command, and hit enter. Now this one takes a little bit longer to pull down than the Carbon platform. So I'll speed this up to make the process a little quicker, but it doesn't take more than a few minutes at most. Great. Again, I can run the docker ps command, docker space ps space -- all. And now I can see that not only do I have the Carbon LDP platform container running, I now have the Carbon LDP workbench running. And just like the platform, even though the container is running, the server within the container still needs to spin up. So that might take just a little bit of time, but if I give it a little time and I go to my browser and I type localhost :8000 and hit enter, you can see that I now have the workbench running. Next, I want to create a new user account for the application that I want to build. So right here where it says don't have an account, I'm going to click create one, and then I'm going to fill out the form. Where it says profile ID, I want to use a very short URL-friendly identifier. So now I click register, and you can see the account has been created. So now I can log in, and it takes me to the Workbench dashboard. I click on the Apps menu item on the left, and you can see the message, there are currently no apps to show. So the next step is to create an app. So I'll create an app, I'll give it a title, my demo app, and a brief description. I click submit, and you can see that it says the app was created successfully. Now if I click on apps, I can see my app in the newly created app in the application list. If there were more apps, you would see those here as well. So let's click on the application name to go into the application. You'll see that a menu opened on the left here. The first item under the dashboard in the menu is the Document Explorer, so I'm going to click on that. This lists all the data documents that exist in your application, and you can see that there are already some documents here that the system generated automatically. These are default documents that store various metadata and information that the system needs. But if I was to use the REST API or the JavaScript SDK to store new data documents inside of Carbon, I would see those here also. So this is a great way when you're developing to go and verify the information that you've placed in the system. Next, there's the Sparkle client. The Sparkle client is a place where you can enter Sparkle queries to analyze and query the data that you have in the Carbon platform. So I just pasted in right now a very simple Sparkle query. I can limit that to 100 results, and I can click execute. And if I scroll down, I can see the results from the Triple Store database. Another feature of the Workbench is the configuration area. And this allows me to export and import data backups. So that's the workbench. Of course, I've been using the term applications to represent these data spaces inside of Carbon. We call them Carbon applications. But of course, we didn't create a fully functional application of any sort. We just created the data space for an application. So what's next? Well, now it's time to actually build our app using client-side code like JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. If you're just getting started, you'll probably want to leverage the JavaScript SDK. For this, you'll want to reference the JavaScript SDK's Getting Started guide on the website. Now, I'm going to show you a quick example of how easy it is to get the JavaScript SDK using Node.js's npm package manager. I can see here if I click on the Getting Started guide, I have the command here. So let me open up a terminal and I'm going to cd into my home directory. I'm going to make a directory called demo app. Then I'm going to cd into that directory and I'm going to say npm init. npm init just basically allows you to create the package.json file that npm needs. Once I've done that, I can run the command npm install carbon LDP space -- save. There, it's all done. Now, if I list that directory, you'll see that I have a directory called node modules in it. If I cd into that directory and list the contents of that, you can see there's a directory in Carbon LDP. So I will already pull down the Carbon's JavaScript SDK using the npm package manager for Node.js. Now finally, I just want to show you one more thing. The Carbon development team has made some boilerplate projects that you can get from GitHub that can accelerate your whole setup process for building a front-end web application. All you need to do is navigate over to github.com/carbonldp and you can see in the list at GitHub there are some with the name boilerplate on them. Up here at the top we have an Angular 2 JSPM Carbon LDP boilerplate. JSPM is a package manager. If I want to create an Angular 2 app, this is a great place to start. So I've already got that boilerplate pulled down into my favorite IDE, WebStorm, and I've opened the README file, readme.md. And the setup instructions are in here. It says I have to install the dependencies, Node.js, Gulp, and JSPM. I've already got those installed. So then it says I need to run npm install and JSPM install. So let me do that. npm install and JSPM install. This will pull down all the dependencies that the project needs. Okay, great. Now you can see that the README file says we need to open config local.json and change the configuration to match your platform installation. Okay, so config local.json. And you can see here that there's a slug that I need to change. It says your app slug. We created my demo app in Carbon. So I'm going to put the slug from my demo app in there instead and save that file. And then it says I need to run npm start. So if I say npm start, it will open the browser. And if everything's working fine, you'll just see this home and login. If it's not working right, you'll see a big error page. So everything's good. That means that I've got an Angular 2 JSPM boilerplate project set up. It's already got the Carbon dependencies. And so now I can start developing my application. And that's really all there is to it. As you can see, setting up for Carbon development is quick and simple. If you have any problems, check out our community support page. There you'll find information about how you can reach us and how you can provide feedback. So thanks for watching. Now, go make something awesome.